Hi, everyone. My name is David Kelly. I'm the Program Director for the eLearning Guild, and I want to welcome you to another Twist Conversation. Today I'm pleased to welcome three members of the mLearnCon Advisory Committee: Chad Udell from Float Mobile Learning, Clark Quinn from Quinnovation, and Robert Gadd from OnPoint Digital. And today we're going to have a conversation about the importance of the mobile technologies in the learning conversation. A lot of things have been going on lately. I've seen a number of things online where critics have criticized mLearning and talked about where mobile learning is ineffective or possibly doesn't even qualify as learning. So we're going to talk a lot today about why that's not the case. So starting with that first basic idea that critics are saying that mobile learning is not relevant or ineffective or doesn't even qualify as learning. Would you agree or disagree, and why? And Chad, I'll start with you, if you can field that question first.
Sure. Well, David, I think I wholeheartedly would say that I disagree, and I think actually the statement itself misses the point of mobile learning, and that is that at no time in corporate professional development or talent development has the learning and development organization had as much ability to directly affect the performance of or ability of the employees to directly complete the tasks and jobs that they have at hand. Much has been written about this in the past, going back all the way to 1991 and beyond, with Gloria Geary talking about electronic performance support systems, and writings that happened through the mid-late 90s, even predating the smartphone, basically alluding to the fact that at some point or another, the pace of technology is going to go so quickly and things are going to speed up so much that the predominant way that employees are going to learn will no longer be through a dedicated training mechanism per se, but actually through on-the-job training. And there is no single better way to help your employees do their job better with on-the-job training than information systems that are always on, always available, and always with them. That's mobile learning.
Excellent. Thank you. Clark, what would you add to that? How would you respond to the critics?
Well, I think Chad's got it exactly right, but I'd reframe it in the sense that I think it's a very narrow view of learning if you think it has to be go away and learn and then come back to the workplace. If you realize how people really learn, whether it's a 70-20-10 model or anything else, we're learning all the time. And what we do when we go away for a learning event is that we try and create artificial contexts so that we can give them practice in the context where they're learning. What we can now do is break that down, and as Chad was suggesting, people are working at the moment, and now we can make that learning happen around there. We need much less information, we need much less intervention to try and get learning to happen, and this is the opportunity we have when we are able to look at mobile and to look at organizations and start thinking more broadly about what learning can be, should be, and how we can support people in the performance. And sometimes it's not even learning. Sometimes it's just helping them get the job done. And we can add a layer on top of that to support the learning as well or not. But we just need to broaden our picture of learning. And then we recognize there's so many more opportunities, and mobile is one of the great, totally ubiquitous tools that's with us all the time that gives us this opportunity.
Excellent. Robert, what would you add?
Yeah, I just continue to play on both of those previous comments. Mobile is something that gives us the ability to stay connected all the time, not just to learn, but to have access to the right people. The right people to answer the question when it comes up. It's not about the course on the phone. That used to be something that was delivered in the classroom or something that was delivered through the browser. I think that's where people are getting confused. We've got to rethink. People have to rethink that whole model and move towards this appliance, this thing we're tethered to all the time, this thing that we would go back and get over our wallet. Those variety of devices that we have. Let's find better and more efficient ways to have access to information, access to people, access to the checklist, whatever it is, and those things are going to give us what we need at the time we need them.
I would completely agree, and Robert, what you said about the course really resonated with me, because I think we have a habit in our industry of taking old methodologies and applying them on new tech. And if you're looking at M-learning through the lens of, well, we've got this model of what we do in the world of e-learning, and if we take that model and apply it on mobile devices, then yeah, I would agree that M-learning is in that context is not going to work. But that's not what M-learning is. Even though we've just changing one letter where it's going from an E to an M in the conversation, a lot more is different than that. And that's where I think a lot of the confusion is, as you mentioned, where it's not just about taking what we do in the e-learning world and applying it in a mobile environment. It's a completely different environment, it's a completely different world, and it needs to be understood that way. And so for me, the next question would logically be, and Clark, I'll start with you on this one, is what is different about the mobile world? What's different about learning or performance support on a mobile technology that opens up this new world for us? Clark.
And I'm going to flip that a little bit, David, and then get back to your question more directly. But one of the things we haven't been doing well is aligning how we use technology with how we actually think, how we work, and how we learn. And the way we learn is little bits over time, because our brains can only get so much association any one day before we literally need to sleep. So what we have the opportunity now is to start streamlining little bits of pieces. And we also learn, it turns out, when we're in context. And we learn better when we're doing meaningful things. And we're primed for that information because our brains have been just put in the context where it's going to be the appropriate next thing. So that's what these devices do, is they're little bits of information. So how mobile learning differs, to your more direct question, is we have these smaller platforms. And the pattern of use of these devices tends to be picking them up, use them a little bit, put them away, as opposed to sit down at a thing for hours on end and churn away. So we have this opportunity to know what the context is and to offer just a little bit and develop people more slowly over time, which more elegantly meshes with the way our brains work. And so we need to stop thinking about monolithic courses and start thinking about micro chunks that meet the need at the right person. We have to have a richer picture of the learner, and we need to have a richer picture of the learning experience, and then we can start doing this micro development over time, which is going to more naturally mesh. And to what Chad said earlier, the distinction between work and learning is going away. People now say work is the learning and learning is the work, because as things get more ambiguous and more challenging over time, we see more and more unique and ambiguous situations where there isn't a pattern response we can do, and we're more effective coupled with technology that does what our brains don't do well. Our brains are really good at pattern matching and meaning making. They're really bad at remembering rote information. This digital technology is exactly the opposite. And so this coupling of what our brains don't do well that's provided by digital technology with what our brains do well, together we're much more formidable problem solvers, learners, meaning makers, and employees.
Excellent. Robert, how do you see mobile as being different?
Well, it's always connected, which is nice. I like Clark's little anecdote about we've got this little thing and we can pull it. It's at the ready. We look at it, 150 times a day. The average person looks at their handset. But it's not just about the handset. It's about the other devices that we have around us and that we use that are all connected now seamlessly to the cloud. We've got a tablet. We've got an ebook reader. We've got an intelligent device on our wrist. Someday we'll have something that we can wear. All of these things are going to change the way that these devices allow us to connect with the things that we need access to at any time. Everybody's been in the situation where you're at dinner with friends and some question comes up, and who can be the first person to pull out the device of choice and answer the question and satisfy the whole group. We all, in some ways, we're going to become overly reliant on the fact that we don't have to remember anything anymore, because we have a variety of different ways we can access or activate that knowledge as needed. But it's not just looking stuff up. Mobile can be about reminding you to do something, reaching out to somebody, connecting with somebody, talking to somebody. It's much more of a two-way communication, or a way to rethink the communication as necessary.
Excellent. And Chad, what do you see unique about mobile?
Yeah, I've got I think a couple things that spring to mind immediately for me, and that is that, we hinge around or think about the M in mobile learning having a lot to do with the devices that we use to access these pieces of information. But in reality, the true M in mobile learning is the learner themselves, and the fact that we need to acknowledge that they are on the go. They are not with a teacher. They are not in a classroom. They are not with a trainer. They are not oftentimes physically with a mentor. And so, therefore, the type of apprenticeship, the type of guidance, the type of design that we can offer them, it speaks much more to their specific needs, their contextual surroundings, etc. But even more so, we really need to start designing for usable channels of information access in a way that we really haven't as learning designer and developers for quite some time. As an instructional designer, we're oftentimes tasked with creating memorable experiences, messages that are heard, seen, heard, remembered, and able to be acted on later. And when a designer is faced with the same challenge in the mobile realm, what we want to do is not provide these new cognitive artifacts that we use to help them remember things later or create a memorable experience, but rather to withdraw and remove as many obstacles and barriers to accessing that information as possible. It's much more akin to a true information architect or web designer's approach to design, as opposed to, say, for example, an instructor designing a day-long workshop or something along those lines. Very different design tacks, very different overall outcomes and goals, and that is because the learners have very different situations and overall needs at the specific time of gaining access to that information.
Excellent. And one of the things that we haven't, that doesn't even get into the tech, what you guys have been describing. I mean, when I think about some of the stuff that's different with mobile, the term that I hear you use a lot is the unique affordances that the devices have and what they can do for us that just is not present. And if you're trying to use the old methods on this technology that can do things that we've never been able to do before, or ignoring those technologies, you're not really taking advantage of it. I mean, one of the things that I've always found very powerful when it comes to the mobile environment is the context that it brings, the awareness of where I am and how the environment can respond to me. I mean, one of the things that I find fascinating as it relates to where mobile technology is going is, a lot of people have heard the example of the beacons that are in Apple stores now, and this beacon technology that it recognizes that I'm near a display and it responds accordingly. And that's got tremendous applications for the ways that we can help people learn or help people do their jobs. And that's one of the things that really excites me when it comes to these possibilities that become available through these technologies that enable us to support people's work and support the way that they're learning in the workflow, in the way things are going, and in ways we've never been able to do it before. For me, that's the big thing that makes mobile such an important conversation, is it's very different. It's something it's opening up avenues that have been previously closed to us, and if you don't have at least a contextual awareness of what's possible, you'll never think to explore it. So that's one of the reasons that mobile is important to me. But the technology is just very exciting to me personally. And one of the questions I wanted to pose for you guys is now that when I start thinking about the technology, I start thinking about, what's next? There's always something next. And mobile is evolving so quickly. What is it about the future of mobile learning that is exciting each of you? Because I know each of you have been early adopters in the mobile space, and where you first started dealing with mobile, the world of what mobile was when you first started dealing with it 4, 5, 6 years ago, or possibly even earlier than that, is entirely different world than it is today. So what is it that excites you when you think about where mobile is going and what the future of mobile technology as it relates to learning and performance? What excites you? Robert, let me start with you on that question.
What's exciting about it is how scary it is in many ways. This is working without a net, and so think about the pace of change. Mobile learning as a concept has been around in a practical sense with a variety of different devices for only a select number of years. But what we do today, what we deal with today, is quite different than what we dealt with just 2 years ago. the vendor landscape changes, the capabilities of the devices changes, the types of devices changing. It is a scary place to be because of the rapid pace of change, and we really don't know what. I mean, there's no 5-year plan in mobile learning technology strategy. It's really a what's practical over the course of the next 12 months. What can we and then deal with all the curveballs that are going to come out from all of the various vendors. Are the wearables going to take over and make it a lot easier for us to get an understanding of the things that we're supposed to be doing, or reminding us to do something, or providing us that little piece of information at the time we need it? I think those things are. I'm scared in a good way. I'll just summarize it by saying that. It makes my job interesting every day, that's for sure.
Chad, what excites you about the future of mobile?
Well, I think one of the things that's probably most exciting to me is, I guess, the flip side of the coin of Robert's thinking, and that is that while it certainly might be scary to think about all of the change that is coming, or that is right around the bend, the thing that excites me is that there are a lot of organizations that are trying out very interesting and innovative things. It does take a bit to dig around, but it's very possible to see some innovative solutions, people doing some pretty amazing things, taking advantage of what these devices can do, putting some really powerful tools in their employees' hands, and capitalizing on these affordances of these devices in order to provide superior user experiences to their employees, to their learners, to their workforce. I know we'll probably see quite a few of those at the Demo Fest that's going to be going on at the conference, but there are a lot of case studies that are being published, a lot of very interesting things happening, and only more things are going to be on the horizon as companies continue to embrace both bring your own device or BYOD plans, as well as more and more organizations bring their own mobile device management, mobile application management servers online. I think 2014 and 2015 is going to see an explosion of companies that finally acknowledge and allow employees to have these powerful devices without nearly as many training wheels on them. And once we see that happen, the stories are only going to get more exciting.
Excellent. What about you, Clark? What excites you about the future?
Arthur C. Clarke famously said, any truly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And it really feels like we're there, because we can bring almost anything we want, anywhere we want, anytime we want. And so now the question becomes, what are we going to do if we have magic? And we can start really aligning what we do with what we need and how to make things happen. So, one of the things exciting to me is the notion of sensors. You brought up knowing context, David, and the notion of knowing not only where we are and when we are, but what the temperature is, what's nearby, what our blood pressure maybe, or our blood sugar. A variety of things can be cued in together, and start at the back end integrating that. I see these tools becoming partners for us. That it's not that we use them and we control, but they can start. Robert mentioned earlier about these things can remind us of things and connect us to people, but they can start doing that opportunistically with some vision of, oh, you're about to go into this thing, let me connect to this meeting with this person, let me connect you to somebody who has met with them before, or afterwards connect you to a mentor. How did it go? What do you want to work on more? So we can start having this relationship and the opportunities to do so much more, to start having rich, powerful models at the back end really working with us in partnership that make us so much more effective. What I love about mobile is it's also a stealth tool, because once people recognize it's not about courses, and yet we want to do things with mobile, and they start doing a rich variety of things, we may bring that back to the desktop as well and start finding richer ways to get people in the learning and development group talking about conversation and performance support, and eventually talking about optimizing performance and continual innovation. And so I'm excited about the technology developments and the opportunities to really augment our thinking and give us new ways to be effective and arguably, hopefully, improve the world.
Excellent. Well, one of the things that excites me when I think of the future most is, in many ways, the future is already here. I look at a lot of the stuff that's going on. Chad mentioned DemoFest. When you go to DemoFest at MLearnCon, you're going to see some incredible things that people are doing, some really exciting things, some things that break boundaries about what learning means and what building a learning program to support people's performance really means. You get to see it in action. And I also like what Robert said about this idea that it's a scary place to be because of all the activity that's going around. At the same time, for me, it's a scary place to not be in that space. Mm-hmm. To have the world changing around you and decide that you're going to stick your head in the sand and pretend it's not going on is a scary place to not be. The world is changing. The way we interact with technology is changing through these devices. How can it not possibly be affecting the way we learn? And as Chad mentioned earlier, organizations are changing the way they function through these devices. How can we not be adapting the way that we support people's learning and performance through it? So I think we've debunked some of the critiques that are going on around this idea of mobile learning. It's not e-learning on a mobile device. It is very different. The three of you have been a big part in helping us build this year's MLearnCon program, and I thank you for that. And if you,
along with Sarah.
Along with Sarah, thank you.
That's
yes,
right.
Sarah Gilbert, who is a part of the advisory group, was unfortunately even unable to join us today. But the four of you have been instrumental in helping us build that program. And I hope the people who are watching this video have heard the message about how important mobile is to the learning and performance improvement conversation for organizations. And the passion that you've heard our guests talk about here today, that passion is going to be in MLearnCon in San Diego this June, and it's one of the reasons I'm really excited about the conference this year. So I want to thank you guys for all of the work that you've done on the conference and for joining me in the conversation today. Any last remarks you want to make before we close off the conversation?
I'll add something. You know, I've certainly seen something interesting happening in customer projects over the course of the last couple of years, where the cool stuff is really getting done in mobile, and that tail is starting to wag the dog with, I got to have that sex appeal that I see in mobile, got to come over to my regular online world. Mm-hmm. So it's really raising the bar for the rest of technology-based learning in a lot of ways.
Clark, Chad, anything you'd like to add?
I'll just say, MLearnCon, the things that are happening, the opportunities to really impact the business are emerging from mobile because it's more where you are, it's more when you are, and the possibilities are so exciting that it's the chance for L&D to finally become really relevant to the organization, which hasn't happened and needs to.
Chad.
Year number 5, and should be probably the most exciting and interesting year yet. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Excellent. As am I. Well, I want to thank you guys. For the viewers who are watching the video, I hope to see you at MLearnCon to join this conversation this June in San Diego. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for the conversation today. And everyone, we'll see you next time on Twist Conversations. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.